Welcome everyone to otakusandgeeks.com Pinfall Rewind. This is episode 3. And today for episode 3, as I alluded to from episode 2, we are going to be talking about the wrestling games from the publisher and developer Acclaim. And this time we're not going to cover not one, not two, not three, not four. We're gonna do 5 wrestling games from different eras of Acclaim, and either they published it or they developed and published it. So I just want to make that known that some of these games was not published, excuse me, was not developed by Acclaim, but was published by Acclaim. So we're gonna kick this off with one of my favorites from the Sega Genesis era. We are gonna be talking about the Royal Rumble, WWF Royal Rumble for the Sega Genesis, which was released in 1993. WWF Royal Rumble for the Sega Genesis was one of the most popular wrestling video games of its era, offering a unique take on the World Wrestling Federation WWF at the time's flagship event. It was developed by Sculpture Software and it was published by Acclaim Entertainment. This game became a standout title for both wrestling fans and video game enthusiasts, offering a action-packed experience centered around the chaos of the Royal Rumble. So let us talk about some of the development, the gameplay mechanics, graphics, and sound, and the difference between the Genesis and Super Nintendo versions. So let me just give you a brief history. So WWF Royal Rumble was developed by Sculpture Software, a studio well known for its contributions to sports video games during the 1990s. The game was released across multi-platforms, but the Sega Genesis version was particularly praised for its more faster pace and more refined control mechanics, which I'll dive into when we get to the gameplay. So Sculpture Software, which was previously worked on WWF Super WrestleMania, which came out in 1991, and then later on WWF Raw 1993 for the Sega Genesis, was familiar with the nuances of making a wrestling game that can stand out. This experience led them to the creation of the Royal Rumble, which focused on the chaos of the Royal Rumble match, a unique event where multiple wrestlers enter the ring in intervals, and the last one remaining is declared the winner. WWF Royal Rumble was also featured for an innovative 16-character roster, including wrestling legends like Hulk Hogan brother, The Undertaker, and ooh yeah, the Macho Man Randy Savage, which added to its appeal. The game was released during a golden age for wrestling when the WWF was at its peak in popularity. With the explosion of wrestling mainstream recognition in the early 90s, Acclaim capitalized on the demand for wrestling video games, which resulted in the Royal Rumble being one of the most successful wrestling titles of its time. Now, speaking of that, let's talk about the gameplay. The gameplay in WWF Royal Rumble is where the game truly shines, especially for fans of the chaotic Royal Rumble match. The key mechanic is the Battle Royale style match where up to 6 wrestlers fight in a ring at the same time. Now, this for us back in the days was huge to have 6 wrestlers in at a time. Now, I know some of you, Gen Alpha, Gen Z, and how even some millennials, this was not a big deal for you guys because you've always had games like that. That you guys have 8 people at a time. For us at this time, think about 1993, okay? This is like little me fascinated that 6 guys at a time was actually on the screen. This was huge for us, especially if you watch episode 1 and you realize that I came from WrestleMania, the NES. So you could see the progression of where wrestling games was going at the time. In the traditional Royal Rumble format, where wrestlers are eliminated once they're thrown out over the top rope, and the last remaining fighter wins. The game recreates this chaos in its own unique way by offering various multiplayer modes as well as the signature Royal Rumble match. In terms of the controls, Royal Rumble offered a simple yet effective button inputs. Players could perform a variety of moves such as punches, kicks, and grapples, and signature finishing moves. What made this game stand out from other wrestling games at its time was the ability to move freely around the ring, perform complex throws, and get involved in tag team action. The gameplay was fast paced and the controls were intuitive, offering players a sense of fluidity during the frantic battles. Additionally, the WWF Royal Rumble also supported multiplayer mode, which allowed 2 players to engage in head-to-head battles. The game features several match types beyond the Royal Rumble, such as one-on-one, tag team, and a championship match, which kept the gameplay fresh. This added to a variety of replayability, which kept players coming back for more. Also, just to talk a little bit about the gameplay, so when you're actually doing moves, it's kind of like this tug of war button mashing. You press a button to grapple your opponent, and then you have to button mash. Say, like if I was playing with Des, if me and Des was playing this, and Des is excellent at button mashing. So Des is faster pressing the button than I am. He will be able to pull off the moves first. So it's basically kind of like this tug of war system of like who can press the button faster to pull off the moves. And it was actually very innovative and intuitive at the time, especially when we were playing games such as WrestleMania for any NES. This was a really fresh take, but I would have to say that Super WrestleMania did introduce this first, but Royal Rumble really financed it and really refined it to become the game that it was. So let's talk a little bit about the graphics here. In terms of graphics, WWF Royal Rumble offered impressive visuals for its time, particularly on the Sega Genesis. The character sprites were large and detailed, capturing the likeness of WWF biggest stars. The animation was relatively smooth, with wrestlers performing signature moves like the Hulk Hogan leg drop or Savage elbow drop. The ring itself was well rendered, and the arenas were immersive, complete with animated crowds and other elements that added to the overall atmosphere. Compared to the Super Nintendo version, the Sega Genesis version had subtle differences in its graphic fidelity. The Sega Genesis allowed for faster scrolling and had more vibrant color palette. As a result, the game felt slightly more dynamic, especially in terms of movement and action within the ring. The ring ropes in the Genesis version were sharper, and the crowd appeared more active, contributing to the intensity of each match. While the Super Nintendo version had slightly smoother character sprites, the Genesis version boasted more fluid animations and quicker transitions between moves, making it feel a bit more responsive. The Sega Genesis hardware allowed for more faster paced action, which fit well with the game's frantic nature. And I will have to say, if you do a comparison, I was a Sega Genesis guy anyway, but I always preferred the Genesis version compared to my friend Ivan who had the Super Nintendo version. We used to play both back and forth, but I just felt like the Genesis version just had a little bit more edge on that. So let's talk a little bit about the sound. Sound design for WWF Royal Rumble on the Sega Genesis was a mixed bag. The music was iconic with the game's menu theme and in-game music capturing the high energy atmosphere of WWF events. So if you, for example, just go to the menu screen and you select which mode you want to do in the character selection screen, if you wait a couple of seconds, they will actually have the theme song play in 16-bit. So every wrestler has their theme song. Razor, Luger, Hogan, Brett, everyone has their music. And that was actually pretty cool to see. However, I would say the sound effects might take you out of it. When I get to the gameplay aspect, when I start playing the game, you're gonna hear things like things of that nature where the wrestlers grunts for every hit, every move. It kind of does take you out of it, and it gets a little bit repetitive and gets a little old quickly. Now, before we get to the gameplay section where we actually play the game, I want to talk a little bit of some of the differences here that I didn't touch on compared to the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. Now, I already talked about the graphics. I will have to say that in terms of audio, the Super Nintendo had more better sound quality when it came to it. The music was clearer, and so was the sound effects. Also, character roster wise, it still had 16, but there was a little bit of a difference here. Super Nintendo had Ric Flair, Mr. Perfect, and Yokozuna. Both versions supported multiplayer, but the Genesis version provided a more fluid experience thanks to its fast paced gameplay. So, before we get into the gameplay where I played a match, and I will be playing, folks, the Royal Rumble, so get ready for that. WWF Royal Rumble for the not Sega Dreamcast, Sega Genesis remains a beloved classic for wrestling fans, offering a fun and frantic experience that captured the energy of the Royal Rumble. The game's development by Sculpture Software led to a title that was fast paced, easy to pick up, and full of iconic wrestlers. While the Super Nintendo version had some advantages in terms of audio and smoother sprites, the Genesis version's fluid gameplay, vibrant visuals, and quick action made it the preferred choice for many players. Overall, WWF Royal Rumble on the Sega Genesis helped solidify the console as a go-to platform for wrestling games with its balance of arcade-like action and impressive roster of wrestlers from the golden age of the WWF. Now, without further ado, my friends, let's play Royal Rumble. All right, it's time to play the Royal Rumble, and let me just show you the roster here. I did allude to a little bit of it. So you had Randy Savage, Bret the Hitman Hart. Of course, we have, Caligari Barricana, and then we have Hogan, Undertaker, Kona Crush, Jim Duggan, and future and now Hall of Famer, the narcissist Lex Luger, Shawn Michaels, who I will be picking, the model Rick Martel, Papa Shango, Razor Ramon, IRS, and that's the roster for the Sega Genesis. Of course, the Super Nintendo had Mr. Perfect, Ric Flair, Yokozuna. So they had a really different roster, but I've always loved the Sega version since I was a Sega kid growing up. So we're going to use Shawn Michaels here, whose finishes not the chip music, but the back suplex, which was one of his early finisher. And here we go. Shawn Michaels kicking off with IRS. And this is what we was talking about, the gameplay, folks. Button mashing. That's pretty much like this tug of war type of aesthetics gameplay. Undertaker's in, Rick Martel is in. I think every 30 seconds someone comes in. Razor's in now. I'm going to try to eliminate as much people as I can. It's been a minute since I played this. Going straight after Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels is. Shawn Michaels now putting a chokehold on Bret Hart here. Drop kick by Razor Ramon on the Rick Martel here. Undertaker, Irish whipping IRS here. And the time they drop there by Shawn Michaels on Bret Hart. These repeated, the time they drops just break them in the eyes, but Bret answered back. And now Shawn and Razor, history between these two, especially during WrestleMania 10. Irish whip on the model. Michaels eye raking the dead man here. Bret Hart with a inverted atomic drop as well. Headbutt to the Undertaker there by Michaels, and Michaels just eye raking everybody here. If you know me, folks, you know I'm always doing that broadcasting. But yeah, this is how the Rumble is. Oh, look out, back suplex by Michaels. Razor just got up, totally no-sold that. He will be fired in real life. Undertaker eliminated by Shawn Michaels. That's 1 for me. Razor's gone. 2 for me. Wait, Luger's in now. Model's going. 3 for Michaels here. Shawn Michaels eliminating machine. Back suplex on the Hitman. And Michaels working on Luger now. IRS eliminated. Shawn Michaels just eliminated Bret Hart. And that's 4 for Michaels. Hogan's in, folks. And Jim Duggan as well. Here comes Papa Shango. Scoop slam by Michaels. Savage is still in there. Give it up for Savage. Surviving this Rumble. At that damn Hogan. Scoop slam by Michaels. Another scoop slam by Michaels. Michaels with a headbutt on Jim Duggan, but there's Papa Shango. And those atomic drops are working here, doing wonders for the boy toy HBK here. Back breaking there by Macho Man Randy Savage. Savage now. Working on Hogan. Long history between these two, folks. Oh, look at that rib breaker there. And Luger going for the, oh no, I thought Luger was going for the forearm. And Michaels now trying to take advantage of a weakened Hulk Hogan here. Michaels with a back suplex to Hogan. That could be it for the Hulkster here. Scoop slam by Michaels. Michaels focusing solely on Hogan here. And Hogan's eliminated by the Heartbreak Kid. Papa Shango eliminated. Here comes Crush. Shawn Michaels has eliminated almost everyone here but IRS. Savage eliminated. Impressive is Shawn Michaels here. And we are down to the final 4. Jim Duggan, Lex Luger, Shawn Michaels and Crush. Michaels using Crush to take out both men here. And Jim Duggan gets the back suplex for his troubles. I still love this game, folks. Like, this game, I can pick up Royal Rumble and still play. As you can see me literally still playing this game in 2025. It still holds up. From the sprites to the way the Royal Rumble is, just the presentation alone. This is still one of my favorite wrestling games. And I definitely will be including this in our series finale when I do my greatest of all time wrestling list. This is definitely on there. Has to be. Raw had a little bit better presentation, a little better refined mechanics than Jim Duggan's been eliminated, but Royal Rumble always has a place in my heart. Luger eliminated. And Shawn Michaels has eliminated most of the roster here. Back suplex on Crush. Can Michaels win this Rumble here? Oh, those scoop slam. I thought Michaels was for sure gonna get crushed out, and he does, and Michaels wins the Rumble, folks. And here's Mean Gene to congratulate Shawn Michaels. And this is one thing I really loved about this game, is that they show you the time interval and the list of who you eliminated. So I did Undertaker, Razor, Model, Hitman, Hogan, Django, Savage, Duggan, Luger, and Crush. Crazy. Nice. Crush was obviously the second man out. I mean, so they show you who was eliminated, like, from the last person eliminated, which is actually pretty cool. It'll be cool if they bring this feature back in 2K games, where you actually get to see, like, kind of the history, how much people you eliminated, and especially with the implementation of that. WWE does that for this year's Royal Rumble that happened previously. I hope they do that. But let's talk about In Your House. Time to bring the next game to your house with WWF In Your House. And this game here was for the PlayStation, and it's a fascinating time capsule. It's a product of a unique transitional period in professional wrestling video games and in the mid-90s pop culture landscape. This was also developed by Sculpture Software and published by Acclaim under their label Acclaim Sports. The game was released in 1996 for the Sony PlayStation and Sega Saturn and PC. While not as fondly remembered as other wrestling games of the era, WWF In Your House occupies an important niche in the evolution of wrestling games, particularly for its outlandish arcade-style approach and ambitious, if flawed, presentation. The game's development followed the success of WWF WrestleMania, the arcade game, which came out in 1995, also developed by Sculpture Software and released in arcade games and on home consoles. That game had taken an extreme arcade approach, blending wrestling with Mortal Kombat style digitized characters, over the top moves, and fast paced gameplay. Acclaim, looking to capitalize on the formula, developed WWF In Your House as a spiritual successor rather than a traditional wrestling simulation. At the time, the WWF, now WWE, was in the midst of the new generation era with stars like Bret the Hitman Hart, The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, and Yokozuna being heavily featured. It was also the era when the WWF experimented in their In Your House pay-per-view series, more frequent but shorter shows aimed to fill the gap between the company's larger pay-per-views like WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, King of the Ring at the time. Yes, King of the Ring was part of the Big Four. Bring back the prestige of the King of the Ring. Sculpture Software opted to lean in more into the arcade motif for In Your House, taking cues from fighting games more than sports sims. So let's talk a little bit about the gameplay. The gameplay of the WWF In Your House is fast, flashy, chaotic. It deviates heavily from traditional wrestling mechanics, favoring 2D fighting game conventions over grappling systems. Each match is a one-on-one fight with light, medium, and heavy attack combos and special moves that can go far beyond anything remotely realistic. Each wrestler has signature supernatural style special attacks, turning into ring into a fantasy area. The Undertaker hurls ghosts in the tombstone. Shawn Michaels launches hearts and kisses and projectiles. Goldust blinds opponents with golden sparkles and Hollywood glitz, and Bret Hart uses a barrage of Canadian imagery, including maple leaf and projectiles. There are no grapples, no pinfalls, no submissions. Matches are won by depleting the opponent's life bar, akin to fighting games. The gameplay includes combo chains, juggles, and absurdly exaggerated animations. It's a more akin to Killer Instinct this time around than Mortal Kombat than a pro wrestling match. Match types are limited. There are no tag matches or cage matches, just single player arcade, ladder battles, and versus mode. The roster includes Bret the Hitman Hart, British Bulldog, Owen Hart, Goldust, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Ahmed Johnson, Ultimate Warrior, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, pre Triple H, just to name a couple. Each wrestler has a custom stage based on their gimmick. The Undertaker stage being a haunted crypt, or Goldust stage resembling a film set. The stage-based designs is unique among wrestling games and contributes to the fantasy fighter vibe. Also, if you want to know, just a little hint for those gamers out there who might want to dive into this, if you press the pause button and press down, 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 L1, once you finish your opponent off, when you're doing the pin, press X and you have their own, each wrestler has their own like fatality, which was pretty cool. The Undertaker turns you into a tombstone. Shawn Michaels has the Heartbreak Hotel come down, and Ultimate Warrior smashes you down to little bits and pieces. But let's talk about the graphics, shall we? Graphically, WWF In Your House used digitized sprites, photographs of the actual wrestlers turned in game characters, much like the Mortal Kombat. This technique gave the game a realistic look that was striking for the time, though it hasn't aged particularly well. Movements are often jerky and animations are limited due to the sprite based system. Each stage is filled with colorful animated backgrounds that reflect the wrestler's persona. For example, Goldust stage has click lights and film reels while Bret Hart fights in a pink and black Canadian theme arena. This visual variety is a high point, adding charm and personality. However, the digitized and limited animation frame rate led to awkward transitions, and the hit detection could be inconsistent. The overall aesthetics feels dated today, but for the mid 90 consoles, it was visually distinctive. Sound. Now let's talk about the sound. Sound design in your house is a mixed digitized voice lines, hard hitting sound effects, and music tracks designed to match each wrestler's theme. Acclaim included voice clips from announcers and wrestlers, although they're often very repetitive and low in quality due to compression. The soundtrack attempts to recreate and mimic each superstar's entrance theme, which you can play in the sound section, by the way. You just gotta keep going forward. These renditions were passable but lacked the impact, and so I will have to say this. The sound was what it was. If you play WrestleMania the arcade game, you're gonna get similar here. You're not gonna get full blown voiceover work. You're gonna get a little bit of JR. You're gonna get a little bit of the King. You'll get a little bit of Vince. You'll get a little bit of certain wrestlers in there, and that's pretty much it. WWF In Your House received mixed to negative reviews upon release. Critics praised the colorful presentation and unique take on wrestling, but criticized the shallow gameplay, lack of depth, and deviation from wrestling fundamentals. It was compared unfavorably both to WWF WrestleMania arcade game, a more simulation-based titles like WCW NWO World Tour. Hint: a full WCW episode is coming. By the way, I'm working on that right now. Still, In Your House has developed a cult following, particularly among wrestling fans of bizarre and experimental wrestling games. It's remembered as a curious time in WWF games, but we will get into that now. My friends, it's time to play In Your House. All right, before we begin, let me enter the code that allows me to do my finisher with the touch of a button.
50 years. Welcome to the new WWF generation. Welcome to In Your House. We are live.
Ooh, Ahmed.
Jawbreaker.
Oh, what the hell? All right, I gotta do something about this Ahmed Johnson. There we go.
That was close. Speed back punch.
Gotta remember these combos.
Oh my.
There we go.
That must hurt.
cheese with the chin music. There we go.
Shawn Michaels gets the win. Hello. Oh my! Dangerous
I
combination.
think I got the 7 hit. I can't remember. I think I used to do like at least a 20 hit. 20 hit. I can't remember the combos. Oh, power.
That's a keeper. Yes. Pearl River Plunge.
Damn. And I had to correct myself. I think I said JR was the commentary on this one. It's actually just Vincent Mr. Perfect. And I lost that one.
Ahmed Johnson gets the win.
Let me go up.
He's climbing the ropes.
Wow.
Oh no. What's he gonna do?
I think so, Ahmed.
He's climbing the ropes.
Gotta watch out for those reds.
This is gonna be bad.
There we go.
If there's a doctor here, we're gonna need him. No! You've gotta be kidding me. Feel this impact. Medic. Rejected. And a kick out. A miss.
Hey, when they do that. Thank you.
That was picture
Now for the
perfect.
finish. Fatality. Heartbreak Hotel.
Kid is every woman's wildest dream and every man's worst nightmare.
I'll go one more. Let's do one more before we hit to the big
What a
one.
matchup this is! Shawn Michaels versus the Ultimate Warrior.
And a loading time for the PlayStation 1 wasn't that bad. There we go. Shawn Michaels versus the Warrior.
What a beating!
Ooh. Oh, no
The
time
Ultimate
like
Warrior.
that. Damn. That's Warrior. Keep blocking. There we
It
go.
was good, but it wasn't perfect. Feel this impact.
There we go. Stomp that out. There we go. HBK.
Shawn Michaels gets the win.
Large and in charge. That was his quote in this game.
Look at this.
Oh, Warrior.
What power. Almost. A miss.
There we go.
Through the face. Dangerous combination move. What the? With authority. This is gonna be bad.
Damn. Oh, I might lose this. There we
Hit
go.
in. This is
Stomp.
gonna be bad. And a kick out.
There we go. One more time.
He's climbing the ropes.
All right, time, my friends, to get
They'll be
to
talking about that
attitude.
match for
Let's
a
talk
long
about
time.
it. It is time to talk about a game that I played religiously. Just want to give a shout out to my brother Jason, Dez, Keenan, and my boy Ivan, because these were the men that I went to war with when it came to this particular game. And out of all the games that we're talking about today, this is the one I played the most. I played this game so much that my PlayStation disc got crashed because of this, and we had to apply alcohol. Like when you was little, you know how it used to blow on the cartridge because they said it would work. Back in the days during the PlayStation era, if your disc was scratched, they was like, oh, just put a little alcohol around the CD or put a little alcohol on the lens and it will read it and it'll be fine. And for some reason it worked. I don't know why. It was weird. Anyway, but today we're going to be talking about WWF Attitude. This was released in 1999 of August for the Sony PlayStation and later on the Dreamcast. And WWF Attitude was the final WWF licensed title developed by Acclaim Entertainment before the license passed to THQ. It followed WWF Warzone, which was released in 1999, and it was building upon its foundation by attempting to expand the game nearly in every direction. Developed by Iguana West, which would later become Acclaim Studio Salt Lake City, WWF Attitude was positioned as the ultimate wrestling experience, capturing the peak of the WWF Attitude era, a cultural high point for professional wrestling categorizing by edgy storylines, charismatic superstars, and rebellious themes. Development took place at a transitional time for Acclaim, both technologically and in their relationship with the WWF. The game was originally intended to release earlier in 1999, but was delayed following the tragic death of Owen Hart, who still appears in the game as a playable character. This delay allowed developers to refine the product further, but the looming expiration of the WWF license meant that they had to wrap up the game quickly and shift focus to the ECW games that will follow. And we will talk about at least one of those games in this episode. But let's talk a little bit about the gameplay. And I want to talk about the gameplay because everything that we see now in wrestling games, from Create a Wrestler to some of the, the commentary, how the commentary is presented, the crowd chants, all of this is really, honestly, we have to give Acclaim its flowers, the developers its flowers as well. Iguana, Sculpture Software, we got to give them their flowers because they laid the groundwork for the SmackDowns, the THQ games to follow, the 2K games that we have today. Acclaim laid the groundwork for them, so we gotta put some respect on their name. We definitely gonna put respect on Attitude's name. I know a lot of other YouTubers, they play this game, they do their retrospectives, and they kind of shit on it. It's like, oh, it doesn't hold up. It's just, look, it's a product of its time. But what we not gonna do here at ONG, we not gonna disrespect the Attitude game, all right? We're not gonna do that here. Maybe the ECW game I'm gonna shit on, but we're not gonna disrespect the Attitude game, okay? Because this was really, I will say, the nexus, the nucleus of what wrestling games were to follow. A lot of games took from what Attitude did and expanded upon their concepts. And man, let's talk about the gameplay. Let's talk about the gameplay of WWF Attitude. The gameplay in Attitude revolves around one-on-one or multi-wrestle matches using a unique grappling system that focuses on inputting combination commands similar to a fighting game. You move your player around instead of one button grapples that we see today. Each move required players to input a short button combo. For example, back, right, triangle. These combinations vary in complexity depending on the move. You had a meter, which was your energy meter. So if you beat your opponent into the red, you were able to perform your finisher move, such as the Stone Cold Stunner or a rock bottom. Pressing the square X, timing it base, where you'll be able to reverse grapple moves and attacks as well. You will get damage as well. Your enemies will bleed. Your wrestler will bleed as well. And while the control system was deep for this time, it had a very steep learning curve. You had to remember your moves, each wrestler's combinations, and it added a little bit of a challenge and replayability. You had some various match types in this. You had single, tag team, triple threat, fatal four way, battle royal, cage match, hardcore match, Falls Count Anywhere, Survivor Series, Gauntlet match, tag team tournaments, and King of the Ring. Not to mention, you had a steep career mode where you could take your wrestler, or you can also take a creative wrestler and start from the bottom all the way to the top. You basically had to just kind of rank up. You begin in small venues like a high school gym, and then you rank up to approve to go to Shotgun Saturday Night and Sunday Night Heat, and then you eventually will get to Monday Night Raw, and then start fighting for the championship at such as the European title, Intercontinental title, tag team, and the WWF championships. As your popularity grows, you'll be able to go to various iconic arenas such as WrestleMania, and you unlock certain characters and arenas, progressing in career mode as well. Now, the biggest thing that Attitude did that had us hyped back in the days, this is one of the first wrestling games to, this is why I said put respect on its name, that had fully animated wrestling entrances. Yes, if you play career mode, Warzone had a little bit of a clip where they just stand on the stage and then walk down, but Attitude went all out. You don't believe me? Watch. I'm going to show you the Undertaker's entrance, because for the gameplay, I will face the Undertaker so you can see how crazy this thing was for us back in the days. It might not look like nothing to this new generation and people who don't go back, but for us, you have to understand, to have full entrances, this was something we were all dying for. And the fact that Acclaim pulled it off for the time that it was just unprecedented. And another big thing that really kicked off things for us was the creative wrestler. The creative wrestler mode in WWF Attitude was deep and flexible for its time and allowing players to craft their own superstar from the ground up. Appearance, you choose the body type, skin tone, hairstyle, face, and gear colors. You can ring attire, you can mix and match tights, boots, gloves, shirts, accessories. You can name and nickname your character, select from hundreds of pre-recorded names for ring announcements. Move set fully customizable, including finishers, grapples, strikes, taunts, and more. And of course, entrances. You had the assigned music. Anyone who played this game, who created a wrestler, the majority of you, I guarantee you, use Crimson Grin. And you don't, I mean, come on. Where are my 80s babies? Where are my 90s people at? Because they know exactly how fire the Crimson Grin song was in this game. I mean, every one of my friends, it was so annoying because we used to this, you know how we had the UW on this channel? We was doing things like that back in Attitude, and I was so annoyed because everyone was using the same theme song. So we all had like fatal four-way matches, but everyone was using the Crimson Grin song. Man, I'm telling you, that song is still fire to this day. We might have something to do. I might have to put one of that songs in the UW out. And of course, Attitude also had blood in there. You could turn it on, you could turn it off. It actually was a game, one of the first games where you can switch the rating from E to everyone or T for teen. This game was just ahead of its time for what it was able to do, my friends. I am not kidding with this. Attitude was one of those games that just really emphasized how what we have now. Like just think about it from a career mode. Create a wrestler. I forgot to tell you, create a pay-per-view. Yeah, you could create your own pay-per-view. Customize the arenas as well. You want to change the ropes? Go ahead in the menu, change the ropes. You want to have a different type of arena set? Go ahead and change it up. You can have a SummerSlam stage with a WrestleMania apron. It was just ahead of its time, and it doesn't get the love it deserves mainly because of the gameplay mechanics, which was more combo based and entering combinations as opposed to what we have to this day. Now, let's talk a little bit about the graphics and then we'll get a little bit about the sound. In terms of graphics, WWF Attitude pushed the PlayStation hardware to its limits. Character models were fairly detailed for the first time, capturing the likeness of the popular WWF superstars in a manner that was visually impressive, especially given the console's limitations. The wrestlers moved fluidly with their animations depicting the realism and intensity of the matches. However, compared to the N64 and Dreamcast versions, the PlayStation version of WWF Attitude was somewhat less smooth. The Dreamcast, with its more advanced hardware, offered better overall graphics with sharper textures and smoother animations, and the N64 also had the advantage of delivering a 3D environment with more fluid frame rate in some of its wrestling games, particularly WWF No Mercy. WWF Attitude's graphics, while impressive for the PlayStation, did suffer from some jagged edges and less refined textures, especially when compared to later 3D wrestling games. The PlayStation's limitations were felt most in crowd details, which were often static and lacked the fluidity seen in later titles on more powerful systems. Now, I will have to say this. Yes, it real as compared to the PlayStation, if you're going to compare it to the Dreamcast version, graphically the Dreamcast of course was more superior, even the 64, but the majority of us played this game on the PlayStation, and I will have to say that even to this day, I still think, especially when we get to the close up when the taunts, the game it still holds up. Yeah, the crowd is horrible, but the game to me it still holds up. Now let's talk about the sound. The sound design in WWF Attitude was one of its stronger elements, featuring dynamic and atmospheric soundtrack, and included a selection of popular music tracks from various artists that captured the edgy vibe of the WWF programming at the time. The game also featured a variety of sound effects, including the roar of the crowd, iconic taunts, the iconic commentary from WWF announcers, Shane McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler. The voice acting, especially the commentary, added a layer of realism to the gameplay. While the commentary wasn't as deep as later titles, it still helped set the mood for the game. And yes, it does get repetitive. But as I said before, the entrance music is where it's at and was faithfully recreated and added such an authentic feel to the in-ring presentation. The sound design was slightly better on the Dreamcast version, where the improved hardware allowed for more cleaner audio with less compression. The N64, however, due to its own sound limitations, offered a much more basic soundscape through its still managed to provide recognizable and impactful themes for the characters. Now, since I am talking a little bit about these other versions, the PlayStation versus the 64, the N64 had the advantage in terms of smoother graphics and better frame rate. However, the PlayStation version offered more in-depth character customization and was an overall more rich feature game in terms of gameplay modes. The N64 controllers being more, how can I say, a little bit not as friendly for wrestling games, provided a little bit of intuitive, but it wasn't compared to the PlayStation controller, which was more comfortable when it came to button mashing and doing combinations. The Dreamcast, however, is superior in terms of visuals, textures, animation. Just it's a superior product. Okay, the controller was more suited, better. It had better, more feel for the complex wrestling controls. The Dreamcast version, if you're gonna, I hate to admit it, if you're going to play this game today, I will recommend the Dreamcast version. However, WWF Attitude for the PlayStation is still a milestone in the evolution of wrestling video games. It introduced new mechanics, new features, had a vast roster, several features that has set it apart from the previous wrestling games from before. And yes, it had graphic limitations. Yeah, compared to the Dreamcast, it's night and day. But I love Attitude, still play Attitude to this day. And guess what? We about to do a match right now. Let's get to it. Right, let's show you the roster. Stone Cold Steve Austin. You also have Mankind, Owen Hart, Triple H, D'Lo Brown, The Rock, Bradshaw, Farouk, Kane, Undertaker, Goldust, X-Pac, Too Sexy, Thrasher, Mosh, Billy Gunn, Road Dogg, Mark Henry, Shamrock, Jeff Jarrett, Steve Blackman, Drod, Val Venus, Edge, Dr. Death, Gangrel, Al Snow, Godfather, Bossman, Christian, and that is the roster for Attitude. But since I told you I'm going to face The Undertaker, I'm going to use my brother's original creation back in the days. Ignore the name. He wasn't that great with names. It's Darkman versus The Undertaker. Also wanted to show you the Crimson Grim song, so that's why I'm actually choosing him. And once again, I'm going to show you a little bit of the custom feature of the stadiums, how you can choose. So you can see I'm choosing the curtains here. I can choose the pad colors. I can choose the post colors, put that black, the rope colors, the stage sign. So I'm making the In Your House right now, my friends. And then we're going to go straight into the matchup. Darkman versus The Undertaker. I won't be talking as much here because they actually have commentary enough with Shane McMahon and the King. So we're just going to enjoy my gameplay of Undertaker versus Darkman. I'll chime in from time to time, but I'm going to shut up here during the entrances. Check this out. purple attire here.
Ain't no disputing it. I'm the biggest dog in this kennel.
Prepare yourself for the tombstone.
Yeah, the voices look kind of trash for the parade voices. Yeah. But now you see what I was talking about when it came to like the Crimson Grim song and how fire that song actually was.
Jockeying for position.
And one thing I didn't get to mention is that how alive the fans are in this game. Like, you really hear the cheers. You really hear the fans making comments, and it's just, to this day, I really wish 2K could implement the fans the way Attitude Game does.
Can I get a witness? The Undertaker has blown it. It's a whole new ball game. What a slam! Yes, yeah.
Gotta check some of these moves because I forgot them, to be honest with you.
Player one is sick and twisted. I usually like that in a person, but not player one. Player one is faring very well here. Come on, what's up with this crowd? Player one's developed a huge following. Player one's in the zone now. Player one takes him right out of the match.
You hear how loud that crowd is. You hear how energetic it is. We need that type of interaction back again.
And they tie up. The Lord of Darkness is helpless. Got him down. Kick him. Go, Undertaker!
You hear that?
Undertaker feeling pain. Left together. Make the rest in peace. Coming off the ropes. Player one, you rock. This place is ready to explode. They're like rabid dogs. Here goes player one. That move was awesome. Just simply awesome. Player one is trying to put him away with high-risk maneuvers. The Undertaker is laid out flat. Got him down. Kick him.
And usually it doesn't take that long to do damage to them to get them to red, but since this is a creator wrestler and he's only average skilled and put his points up, it's going to take a bit.
Close quarters. The Lord of Darkness falters. Uh-huh. Can't kill what is already dead. They hook up. The Lord of Darkness is out of it. Hit him, player one. He slams him down. You can't stop, Taker. The Lord of Darkness slips. Woohoo! That's the way to do it. Look out! These fans are going through the roof. They're rooting for the wrong one. Nicely done. Undertaker is out cold. Kick him. Kick him. Player one kicks him. This crowd is going berserk. Why don't you get in there and wrestle, McMahon? Mixing it up. Yes. He waffled him with that. I've never seen that done.
1, 2, 3.
And Darkman wins this matchup, folks. What a matchup by Darkman. But now it's time to go a little bit of hardcore with ECW Anarchy Rulz for the Dreamcast. Let's talk about it. Oh boy. All right, it's time to talk about ECW Anarchy Rulz, which was released in the year 2000 for the Sega Dreamcast. ECW Anarchy Rulz was the second and final wrestling game based off Extreme Championship Wrestling, a wrestling promotion known for its hardcore, rebellious style. This was developed by Acclaim Studio Salt Lake City and published by Acclaim Entertainment. The game arrived during a transitional period in wrestling and gaming and ultimately failed to capture the momentum of its brand and meet the expectations of wrestling and Dreamcast fans alike. Anarchy Rulz was a follow-up to ECW Hardcore Revolution, which had launched earlier in the year across multiple platforms, including the Dreamcast. Both games were built on the same engine as the Acclaim's WWF Attitude, and trust me, do you really see that it was built off the same engine, which had previously seen success on the PlayStation, N64, and Dreamcast? After losing the WWF license to THQ, Acclaim quickly pivoted to the upstart ECW brand, hoping to capitalize on the growing cult popularity of ECW among hardcore wrestling fans. The rapid turnaround between the two ECW games, less than a year apart, led to minimum engine improvements and recycled gameplay mechanics. However, Anarchy Rulz aimed to improve on the hardcore revolution by offering a more authentic ECW experience, more match types, and an expanded roster. Unfortunately, during this time, ECW as a promotion was already facing financial instability, which would close its doors in early 2001. This doomed any long prospects of the game series. So let's talk a little bit about the game. At its core, ECW Anarchy Rulz reused the same animation and control frame rate as WWF Attitude. Matches are slow paced by modern standards at this time and relied heavily on the memorization long input chains for each wrestler's moves, which made the learning curve steep, especially for casual fans. I hate to say it, guys, but this is pretty much an Attitude game re-release with ECW wrestlers. Grappling was based on weak/strong systems, but lacked the fluidity or accessibility of competitors like WWF No Mercy or SmackDown. Where Anarchy Rulz tried to make itself different was in its match types and atmosphere. The game included much more match types than Hardcore Revolution, such as street fights, table matches, inferno matches, barbed wire matches, and backlot brawls. The barbed wire match was the one that had all of us wanting to get this game, but it's disappointing. Very disappointing. This variety did offer more fan service to hardcore wrestling fans who associate ECW with violence and unpredictability, but the core gameplay remained clunky and dated at its time. The Creator Wrestler mode returned with some enhancements, letting players customize their own characters, movesets, and entrances. The mode was competent for its time, but was starting to feel limited, dated compared to what other wrestling games were offering at the time. Graphics on the Dreamcast, Anarchy Rulz looks slightly sharper than its PlayStation or N64 counterparts. Thanks to superior hardware, character models were more detailed, textures were crisper, and the frame rate was more stable. That said, the visual style and animations were rooted in the older Attitude engine, which by 2000 felt outdated. Keep in mind, No Mercy came out WrestleMania 2000, WCW NWO Revenge, SmackDown was out. So we had wrestling games that had a more traditional wrestling style, easier way to perform moves, better presentation, better match types. Unfortunately, it really was dated at this time. Arenas captured a grungy underground ECW aesthetics with dim lighting and smoky backdrops. That was some effort to bring ECW Arena to life. Wrestler entrances included pyrotechnics and theme music, though, were still limited by the tech and didn't quite match the spectacle fans saw on TV. Animation was stiff, and there was a general lack of impact in the moves. Weapon usage was prevalent, but the hit detection and physics were just it wasn't there, guys. It really wasn't. As far as sound and presentation goes, mixed bag. Commentary performed by Joey Styles was included, but suffered from repetitive and poorly timed audio clips. Russell's entrance featured their respective theme music or similar sounding like it, but licensing restrictions meant that not all tracks could be in the game. Sound effects for hits, slams, and weapons usage were exaggerated, which fit the overtop ECW vibe, but quickly grew repetitive. Crowd noise was flat and didn't react dynamically to the match's events, reducing immersion. Menus and UI were functional but bland, with a generic presentation that didn't fully capture ECW's wild energy. When the game came out, it was really, really canned. It had largely negative to mixed reviews upon release. Critics and fans alike pointed out that it was too similar to Hardcore Revolution and far behind its competitors in terms of innovation, gameplay, fluidity, and polish. They complained about the outdated graphics, despite the Dreamcast capabilities, sluggish and unresponsive controls, lack of originality, and people basically said this was just an attitude game with ECW character skins. It is, however, a footnote in wrestling game history. It's a title remembered more for what it represented than for what the gameplay and quality was. It was the last ECW game ever before the company folded and was acquired by the WWE. It also marked the end of Acclaim's relevance in the wrestling genre as THQ and Ukes became the dominant forces in wrestling games for the next decade. Acclaim would try to make a comeback with our final game, but first, let's talk about ECW and let's play ECW Anarchy Rulz. All right, here we go, folks. ECW Anarchy Rulz, and we have Rob Van Dam here coming out to the ring. And honestly, Dreamcast is one of my favorite systems of all time, and I still think Dreamcast graphics, Dreamcast games still hold up to this day. This is no different. Graphically, it looks gorgeous compared to the Attitude PlayStation 1 game. Look at the character models. Look at the way RBG looks. He looks good in this. And here comes Tommy Dreamer, which is going to be my opponent for the night. And just like the Attitude, since Joey Styles does say sound bites here and there, I'm going to keep my commentary very minimum here. But here's the thing. You can tell this is just an Attitude game with ECW characters because even the way they walk in the ring, even if you saw that particular shot, that's straight from the Attitude era. They even changed camera angles for this stage. It's just, honestly, this was just a very lazy installment by Acclaim, and this really started. I honestly think this really started the downfall from not being able to really adapt to the THQ competition, and obviously SmackDown, No Mercy, all that stuff really killed the Acclaimed wrestling market.
The whole f***ing show.
I am the innovator of violence.
And here we go. Same freaking health bar. Same attacks. Same sound effects. Just literally same. Suplex. And toss. It literally is the same animation. I mean, you just saw me do a whole long section on Attitude. If you're comparing this, folks, what can you tell me that's different besides the ECW characters? gameplay, from animation, all that. What was different
Hey,
about this?
why all the hostility?
There was nothing different. The health bar is even the same. I don't know where Joey Styles is, but I did turn the must be a glitch, because I did turn the commentary on.
No!
All right, that was a ridiculous scream. Slam. Crowd is even like kind of the same here. Let's check the move list. That's it. Hold on. Let me do this again. Oh my God, that's it? Compared to Attitudes, this is the move list. This is lazy. Attitude had a full move list set of various combinations. They gave you the bare minimum in ECW Anarchy Rulz. This is ridiculous. Like, really?
Oh, come on now. Hey, Tommy's just a dreaming.
Same fan voice.
Oh, ah.
Come on, Tommy, we'll kick your ass.
This building is alive with excitement.
I guess my commentary is back on here.
Oh, come on. RVD almost didn't escape in time.
RVD gave up. I saw it.
One. Easy escape for player one.
RVD kicks out somehow.
All right, commentary's here, folks. Our next game, we're going to be talking about Legends of Wrestling 2, which will be our final game. And I'm going to shut up for the rest of this match, because the commentators are here. So enjoy this gameplay. I will be back with Legends of Wrestling 2.
Vertical suplex. Hip toss.
No, come on.
Body slam. Come on. Hey.
Go, Tommy!
Hit the DDT, Dreamer!
Oh, man.
Come on.
He escaped.
RVD must have cheated to get out of that.
Top wrist lock. RVD. Just a target right now. One.
Dreamer!
Two. Man.
Hey,
Against the ropes. Into the ropes. One. Two. Three.
Now, when it comes to wrestling games, this one, you can say, has a cult following. It features the Legends of wrestling, and that is exactly what we're talking about. Legends of Wrestling 2, which was released in the late 2002, was the follow-up to Acclaim Entertainment's Legends of Wrestling. It was developed by the Acclaim Studio Salt Lake City. The series attempted to carve a niche in the crowded wrestling game genre by focusing not on modern-day promotions like WWE, but on the legends of wrestling's past. An ambitious idea at the time, with WWE games being dominated by THQ and UX, particularly the SmackDown series. Acclaim sought to differentiate by leading into more of a nostalgia and a rich history of pro wrestling. Acclaim itself was a company with a story history in video games, once the publisher of the WWF series during the 8-bit and 16-bit eras. But by the time the early 2000s came around, Acclaim was struggling financially, trying to find a hit. Legends of Wrestling 2 was a passion project and a commercial effort to rekindle some of their early successes. The development of Legends of Wrestling 2 was ambitious in scope. It featured a significantly expanded roster from the first game, boasting over 65 legends from various wrestling promotions, including Hulk Hogan, Bret Hart, Macho Man, Andre the Giant. This was notable as many of these stars had previously been under exclusive contract with WWE video games. The development team aimed to improve on the original Legend of Wrestling, which was criticized for clunky controls and limited features. For the sequel, Acclaim promised deeper gameplay mechanics and revamped career mode, improved visuals, and a broader historical experience. However, limitations in licensing and budget meant that some features still lacked the polish seen in WWF licensed games. So let's talk a little bit about the gameplay. The gameplay in Legends of Wrestling was built around an arcade style system rather than a strict simulation. It featured a grapple based control scheme where players would lock up and then choose from a variety of moves depending on button combinations and wrestler attributes. Notably, the game included a deep career mode with multiple territories to conquer, a nod to the territory days of wrestling pre WWE consolidation. Creative wrestler mode, although somewhat limited by today's standards, it allowed for customization, tag team matches, cage matches, and more, though the variety of match types was still behind contemporaries. The combo system was simplified with a focus on building up a momentum meter to unleash signature moves and finishers. While accessible, many critics and fans found the controls sluggish and animations poorly timed, resulting in a lack of responsiveness that hindered enjoyment. One standout aspect was the historical flavor. Each legend had an in game biography, and the game included unlockables and trivia about wrestling history, which appealed to hardcore fans. As far as the graphics go, graphically, Legends of Wrestling 2 was a mixed bag even in 2002. Wrestlers were rendered with exaggerated physiques, almost cartoony, so similar to action figures with bulging muscles and oversized features. The stylistic choice divided fans. Some appreciated the comic book feel, others felt like the realism that it lacked the realism of SmackDown and No Mercy in games of that time. Animations were often stiff with transitions between moves appearing jerky. Facial animations were not that great, and crowd reactions were largely static. The environments, arena designs, and lighting were serviceable, but didn't reach the visual polish of the competitors on the PlayStation 2. However, the game did offer some nice touches like unique entrances and theme arenas based on different regions, giving each arena an area and career mode a distinct vibe. The sound design was another area where Legends of Wrestling 2 received criticism. Entrance themes were often generic versions of the Legends' real music due to licensing restrictions, while some tracks were catchy or tried to match the wrestler's era and vibe. They lacked authenticity. There was no commentary during matches, a significant omission even at the time. The crowd noises were repetitive and lacked some dynamic chant, making the in-match atmosphere feel flat. On the bright spot was the inclusion of Jimmy Hart, legendary wrestler manager and composer, who contributed some music and lent promotional flair to the game's marketing. His involvement added credibility, even if it didn't translate fully into the audio experience. Upon release, Legends of Wrestling 2 received mixed reviews. On Metacritic, the PlayStation 2 version hovered around the mid 60s, with praise given to the expanded roster concept, but criticism directed at gameplay mechanics and animation and lack of polish. After Legends of Wrestling 2, Acclaim will release Showdown Legends of Wrestling in 2004, but it will be the last in the series. and one of the final releases from Acclaim before the company folded. Today, Legend of Wrestling 2 is a cult classic. Its shortcomings are acknowledged, but its ambition is respected. Wrestling fans often look back at it with nostalgia, appreciating the effort to give legends their due in the era dominated by current rosters. In the modern age of wrestling games where WWE 2K dominates and independent projects like WrestleQuest and Ultra Pro Wrestling are emerging, Legends of Wrestling 2 serves as a reminder of a time when wrestling games tried to honor the past, not just reflect the present. And with that being said, folks, we are going to end this episode of Pinfall Rewind episode 3 with me playing Legends of Wrestling. Here we go. It's time to play Legends of Wrestling 2. Once again, folks, if you've seen from the subtitles here, YouTube blocked this entire episode because I actually used the in-game music of Legends of Wrestling and Attitude. WWE just said absolutely not. You are not using Jim Johnson's music for the Undertaker entrance. That's why you got that. My interpretation of it using various softwares, but same thing I did with Bret Hart, and same thing I did with Hogan here, who's going to be my opponent, and same thing I did with the ECW. So no actual theme songs were used in this particular. Well, some of them managed to get through, some didn't. So for those that didn't, obviously. So I think I did a decent job to try to recreate certain of the things here. But we're gonna play Legends of Wrestling 2 here. This will be our final Acclaim game here. Thank you for sticking with me over this hour here, going through some of Acclaim's hits and flaws. So it's been a very interesting journey here just to see where all the wrestling used to start. Like I can't stress enough how important Acclaim was to really developing with the wrestling games that we have today, my friends. And we really have to give them their flowers because they really paved the way for youth. They really paved the way for 2K and various other companies. Like I said before, what Attitude was able to do with Create a Wrestler, Create a Pay-Per-View, Brought Blood, changing it from teen to everyone and things like that, that was all implemented in a lot of games later on down the line. So let's really get into it now. Let's talk a little bit and play a little bit of Legends of Wrestling 2 here. I'm Bret Hart, of course. Going to try to beat Hogan, who my friend said seems to be super overpowered in this game, and I can kind of see why here. And one thing I really can't stand about this game is the reverse system. The fact that if you just saw there, that toggle of reverse system. So you had to press the prompt button when it's in the yellow to be able to reverse, but sometimes you have a small window, sometimes you have no window at all. It depends, I guess, on an image or whether it's just randomized. Not really sure, but it's actually difficult back suplex there by Hogan. Bret Hart now with a tie-up here. Bret Hart with a shoulder break on Hogan, but Hogan getting up immediately and power bombs the Hitman. And one thing I really can't stand about Legends of Wrestling 2 is there is absolutely no selling whatsoever. Like, look how easy Hogan just gets up and eats everything I'm giving him. Hogan with a cover now and a kick out by the Hitman. But it's just like there's literally no selling in this game. And that's just, for me, like the most annoying part about it. That there's no selling in this game. So it's like, oh, I'm going to give you a scoop slam shoulder breaker. Nice transition there. But it's things like that that's pretty cool. The fact that Hogan did a shoulder breaker and he transitioned it into this sit down sleeper hold, but Bret Hart countered it with a jawbreaker. You don't really see that sequences in a lot of wrestling games, but there's things in here that they did so well. That chain wrestling type of style with moves where you could be able to chain it, they did good with that. But I mean, for the majority of it, though, it's still sluggish. It's still clunky. And yeah, I definitely have to agree that Hogan was a little overpowered in this. But I maybe it's a situation where it just didn't work for him, brother. You know. And Hogan, again, repeating the same moves. And once again, that the moves are so limited here, too. You would think at this particular time in the PS2 era that we would get a lot more moves here. But I guess it just, I don't know, maybe it's budget. I have no idea. Hogan botching these leg drops here, trying to end Bret Hart. No, actually, they actually did damage. It just doesn't, the hit detection didn't detect it. That is trash, my friends. And Hogan, look at that. Transition to the pin. See, it's things like that, like I said, I like. There are a couple of things I do like about the game here. I do like those seamlessly transition into moves. I like that. I think that's pretty cool that you do that. But there's a lot of things in here I'm just like, really? What? I don't know. Y'all kick out a Hitman. Hogan, Hitman going for another power driver on the head of the Hulkster. Hogan getting up, totally no selling here. Doesn't work for him, brother, into a belly-to-belly suplex. But the Hitman striking back. And tie up here by the Hitman. Bret Hart's got to try to get some momentum here from the Hulkster, who's no selling everything that the Hitman's throwing at him. And Bret Hart finally got another snap suplex. This could be Bret Hart's time here to lock in. Oh no, decided not to lock in the sharpshooter. Though he was going for it. And now Bret Hart with another inverted atomic drop. Hulkster still no selling it. And Hitman no selling Hogan's hip toss here. Another sap suplex. No, Hogan wisely reversing it. And Bret Hart reversing over Hogan once again. The Hulkster with a back suplex. No! Face buster there. And Hitman once again with another power driver on the head of the Hulkster. And now Hogan. Bret Hart trying to do everything he can, folks. Inverted atomic drop. These repetitive moves. Bret Hart taunting here into a spine buster. Here comes a cover here. This will be it for the Hitman and a kick out by Bret Hart. Another spine buster. These repetitive moves, and there's a leg drop. The sequence of leg drops by the Hulkster. This could be it for Bret Hart here, folks. And a kick out by Bret Hart, still being able to kick out, but Hogan getting frustrated, has a barbed wire bat here, and now Hogan headbutt to the Hitman. And look out, and a pile driver by the Hitman. And an uppercut. One thing I will give them credit for, the blood splattering, the blood staying in there. I'll give them credit for that. They did a good job with the blood here. But the fact that the moves are, if honest to God, it feels like I'm playing Royal Rumble with the limited moveset here. Like for a game that's on the PlayStation 2, especially with the offerings that SmackDown had at the time. Hell, if you were still playing No Mercy at the time, WCW NW Revenge, this is sad. Hogan now, busy taunting this crowd here, getting the love from the crowd here. Bret Hart is hurt. And there's the leg drop out of Hulkster, but Hitman's finally up here. Can Bret Hart regain some momentum? Another suplex here. Hip toss. And Hogan with the leg drop. This could be it here, folks. Hogan going for the cover. And that is it, folks. And that is our look at Legends of Wrestling 2. Let's go. Let me get to my final comments here. Acclaim's impact on wrestling games was undeniable, especially during the formative years of the genre. While their titles are often criticized for clunky mechanics or dated visuals, Acclaim played a pivotal role in bringing wrestling games to the mainstream in the 90s. They helped establish the blueprint for licensed wrestling games, blending real-world personalities with arcade-style gameplay that appeals to fans beyond the wrestling audience. Games like WrestleMania the Arcade, Warzone, paved the way for more sophisticated titles that we got later on, showing that there was a massive market for wrestling in the gaming world. Even though their reign eventually faded, Acclaim's contributions laid the groundwork for future developers to refine, evolve, and perfect what they started, making them an essential chapter in the history of wrestling games. Now, I'm going to conclude this episode with you've seen little glimpses of it, but I am going to show you. For those who watch the UWL, the character J-Will is my main character that I've always created ever playing wrestling games back since the Attitude Warzone era. So and J-Will, obviously, I was a big Rock fan. So J-Will was basically started off as this Rock ripoff, which I called the Just, because Justin's my first name, obviously. So, time to embarrass myself. And it is time, folks. Here is my first creation ever. Keep in mind, I was 12 years old, all right? It's not as good as you see on our channel with the UWO, goddammit. But here, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we conclude Pinfall episode 3. Pinfall Rewind episode 3 with the just. Enjoy the entrance, folks. And if you like what we do here, hopefully we earned your subscription. Please hit the like button, the subscribe button, and hit the notification bells. I'll be back with Pinfall episode 4, where we take a look at WCW games. Later day.
Can you see what the just is baking? The justice and the justice. The justice, the justice, the justice, the justice. The legend of all legends.